says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you love is the one you loving?
And we live in this country where, you know, as we look at the writer strike and now the actor strike, and how how, you know, upside down the money is between the people that run these studios and the folk that work in these studios. Even the millionaire actors aren't making billions. And it's similar to me to sports, where you have owners of teams that can't dribble a basketball or shoot or do anything, but they're making 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more than the players on the court that make the money. Football, forget about it. I remember when Dan Snyder was going bankrupt twice before Mort Zuckerman gave him another check before he bought the Redskins. I remember when he was a bum of a business person that struck it rich with a football team. I remember, because I was at the Daily News at the time, and I was sitting there like looking at him now with his arrogant ass, like, you didn't do that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
like, you act like you did that. Like, you didn't do that. So I feel like we live in a world full of these mediocre posers who luck up or through legacy because daddy or granddaddy or adjacent godfather, uncle, whatever. You know, there's a very insider game being played. Like you said, what's the joke is inside the house? What's the book?
In on the joke.
In on the joke. Like, there are a lot of people in on the joke. They probably sit around smoking stogies laughing about how these so-called, you know, people are making them rich as they're on their yachts in Saint-Tropez, while they're forcing people like Elon Musk back into the office when he's never in the office unless he feels like it. You know, all the people, let's get back to work, and you ain't even in the office. Like, get the hell out of here. You expect me to do something that you're not willing to do? This is the country that we live in. At what point, Don Calloway, do we say something? As I mentioned before, Stephen A. Smith, he's in the news a lot, primarily because, you know, Shannon Sharp looks like he might be going to ESPN, and that could be interesting. But I'm wondering, what is our responsibility? So he went on a 25-minute monologue last week defending ESPN, which caused Dan Le Batard to say some things about him, you know. And Dan Le Batard says Stephen A. Smith is hungrier than anyone I've ever met in this business about accruing, and whatever's next for him is going to be giant. He said, I consider him a friend. I've been impressed with him. But then he said, I don't like what he's done to sports. We've had this conversation before. He said, I don't like what he's done with sports television. I think he's helped make it dumber. He said, this has bothered me. And I said this to him the last time we talked, and I would like to talk to him in the future in a way that is conversational and not performative. Ooh, he's saying something. And about how dumb sports debate television has made everything. And I'm going to say it's also in news. It's also in every facet. It's not just sports, right? All of television is dumb, in my opinion, as it relates to having these conversations. Maybe Brian Gumbel has maybe the smartest, but he's doing packaged stuff like CBS Sunday Morning and 60 Minutes. That said, Le Batard said his team proceeded to listen about a minute and a half of Stephen A.'s 25-minute speech, and he started laughing at the showmanshipness of it. And you know, and he said, it's good enough to take the money from them, but is it good enough to challenge? At what point do we have a responsibility to those of us who are either making money or influential within these companies to either say nothing or challenge? Where do you sit on this? I don't think you have to give them coverage, though.
My Lord, that's a lot. Well, I think first of all, everybody has to understand themselves and the role you play in this system on an ongoing basis. I am not a revolutionary. I am a deeply concerned and activated liberal, progressive, but I am not a revolutionary because I am still participatory and committed to capitalism. Right? And so Stephen A. Smith is a capitalist, if nothing else, right? He's an employee, a high profile, well-compensated employee, but he is fundamentally a capitalist. So I think we have to be careful about setting a universe of expectations for a progressive man who is very clearly not a revolutionary, right? So we have to define Stephen A. Smith's responsibility to his people in that context, right? Of someone who is decidedly not a revolutionary. Now, him being not revolutionary does not absolve him from having a responsibility to speak truth to power for the betterment of his people, because we have given him the platform. Black New York City gave Stephen A. Smith swag. Winston-Salem State University and HBCU gave Stephen A. Smith the 10 million or whatever $1 million contract here. The value he has extracted is because he is a deeply connected black man. So you owe black people, right? You owe black people not only to speak the truth to power in the context of sports, but you owe black people the obligation to advance our causes, right? And I think, I met Stephen on your show, and I came away impressed. I think that overall, on balance, Stephen A. Smith has been a net positive for black people, right? From the platform that he has. Now, we can debate his style, right? And it is not the style that you or I would employ to do that. But we cannot single out Stephen A. Smith when he came of age, as you deftly pointed out, during the era which infotainment became the order of the day.
Right.
Fact-based infotainment, or mostly fact-based, Fox News, right? But fact-based infotainment became what got eyeballs. And when ad revenue for getting eyeballs hit all-time highs, infotainment is what drove that. We cannot blame Stephen A. Smith for being a man of his times if he's not doing anything fundamentally amoral.
Let me be clear. I love this man. I would never challenge even his style. I like his style. It's very familiar to me. What I'm saying is the responsibility once you get to a particular place. And for me, I don't have the same responsibility, so I can't speak the same way about what it is. But I feel like, to come up in an era where you could get away with that. But I feel like after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, after, all of the slights and the things that have happened over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, there must be a shift in the responsibility. And maybe a Dan Le Batard has more freedom to say those things because he's not a black man, And so what I'm asking, is there a place, because this is not even about a Stephen A. This is about all of us in these places, because I feel like, there's a corporate way to behave, which we all know how to play the game, right? There is a game, like you said, there's a game being played. You're either in on the game or you're not. Most of us know what the game is and the rules and how to win at it. Some of us are better than others at navigating those spaces. But to navigate those spaces properly means that white people have to be comfortable around you. It's very hard to navigate those spaces when they're not comfortable with you.
White people have to be comfortable around you, or you have to have an asset or widget that is so uniquely valuable and only you can provide, right? So LeBron James has reached a place where he can say some things that make white people uncomfortable. And as a result, Rich Paul can do some things because LeBron James is his widget, right? And so, and their whole ecosystem, right? And so to the extent that Stephen A. Smith is still an employee of Disney, right? And there's nothing wrong with being that. But we've identified in the last segment that he is not a revolutionary, but he's a capitalist. He still has responsibility. As an employee, you understand that you exercising your responsibility to black people can come at the expense of your job. And that's something that you have to live with if you want to be authentic in those W-2 corporate, I get this check and this 401k and this bonus. If I want that, I have to understand that the more authentic I am, the more in danger I am, susceptible to being terminated, right? And then, maybe you could take it up on the back end. That's what the American litigation system is for. And some folks are starting to be held accountable for unreasonable terminations. Or maybe you just say, hey,
through that?
Who wants to go through? Right, and that's a great point, because that takes stress and that takes courage. But also, we must be of good courage as well, right? As people of faith. But also, I think you go into that having to make the decision about, okay, well, what obligation do I care about more? My obligation on behalf of my people who brought me thus far, or my obligation to this company whose board of directors don't know me and whose CEO would come to my funeral, smile and shake hands and be gone and replace me in 10 minutes, right? So I think you have to make a moral decision. And frankly, I think you have to prepare your household. If you want to go in that company and grow your hair out and be authentic, I think you need to prepare your household. You need to be saving money. You need to be understanding what's next. You need to be understanding what you can do, who you can call if it's all over tomorrow, because all of us who got them George Floyd jobs, they ain't got them no more, right? DEI jobs, that's over with, right? And so now that the economy is beginning to shrink, and that's intentional, we can discuss why on another next time I come, self-invited back. But now that the economy is shrinking, all the bells and whistles, all the caring, all the racial, that stuff is out the door, right? And so if you are an African American executive somewhere and you are not uniquely doing something for that company that cannot be replicated, you
You
go
move
in there and
on.
grow your hair out if you want to. It's gonna be shorter days, right? And
Right.
so that's just a
And
choice you have to
that's why I
understand
brought it
going in.
up. There's the Executive Leadership Council, which is a global organization, more than 800 global Black executives, told American CEOs that the Supreme Court's decision should not affect their efforts to implement DEI. They're coming forward as a group to say, hey, stop firing people in these D&I positions. I don't know how effective it's going to be because, to your point, dollar cost analysis, this is not bringing money in. So why do I need it? For me to feel guilty on top of that? No, this position can go. So
another little secret hack for all of our brothers and sisters and family out there who are wanting to participate in corporate America: get as close to the widget as possible. I grew up in Anheuser-Busch, spent 10 years there. And, cuts are going to happen because we're going to have a down quarter or a down year from time to time. But those who are more likely to survive RIFs, reduction in force, are those who are as close to the widget as possible. So external affairs, admin, all of that, you become more expendable. But if you are close to the manufacture and sale and management of the widget, you are probably safer. So get into the substance of what your company does or makes or whatever to make yourself indispensable,
I always tell my
particularly as
students,
an African American.
one of the first lessons I tell my students is any company you work for, find out how they make their money and be responsible for helping them to make the money. Know how they make the money. Most of us don't even know how a company makes their money. I didn't know when I started the newspaper that they didn't make their money off of paper sales. I didn't know it was the advertising. I thought it was the dollar that they charged. Nope, it was advertising. And that changed how I saw my role there. 866-801-8255.
Yeah. I run my fingers through her hair as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one